Hi, everybody. How are you? I'm good. I'm good. So, last week we talked about the syllabus overall. We talked about LinkedIn. We talked about your professional development plans. This week we're going to talk about the case paper, which is the lion's share of your grade in this class and what I expect for that. That's going to be today's class. Thursday, we'll talk all about the online simulation Globus. Wednesday.
You'll figure it out.
Yes. Sooner or later, I'll figure it out. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Monday, Wednesday. That is my course schedule this semester, not Tuesday, Thursday. Try to remember that. Wednesday, we will talk about the online simulation Globus. The next week, we'll start getting into more lectures. So, today is all about the case analysis document. So, this is pretty much a template that I've put together for you guys that I want you in your groups to fill out over the course of this semester. So, that is your case analysis assignment, is as a group to fill out this document that I'm going to walk you through today. So, you go to Blackboard. What's that?
Do we have to enroll in this class on Blackboard?
Self-enroll, yeah. Eventually, I'll add whoever's not included, but yes. So, in the content section of Blackboard, under Case Analysis Materials, you'll see Case Analysis Template with Info Sources. That is the template that I want you to open up as a group, and you're going to fill it out. You'll see there's a bunch of different tables and charts and stuff that I want you to fill out over the course of the semester. So open that up. Yes?
Can you just turn one thing in for the whole group or one per person?
Nope, one per group. So this paper is a group effort. You're welcome to divide up who works on which part of it. We'll go over all of the different things in here in the various lectures over the rest of the semester. So, getting this onto one page, you'll notice there's black type and there's red type in here. The black type is the structure that I want you to follow. The red type is instructions for you on each page as to what I want you to do. So the summary section here is actually the last thing that you're going to fill out. You're going to complete the entire rest of this paper and then do the summary last. However, I will go over what I want you to do here first, since it's at the first page. So you'll see down here in the red section, there's some parts of this case analysis where I want you to go out, search online, do interviews with people you know at the focal companies. So first of all, as a group, you're going to choose a company that you want to focus on. It should be a company that you guys as a group are interested in professionally, and that's going to be the company that you profile in this case analysis, okay? So there's going to be some times where I want you to go out and do some research, copy and paste it in effect, and then footnote where you got the information. There's other places where I want you to do things in your own words. The summary section is one where I want you to work in your own words. So first of all, I want a paragraph at the very top under the summary section with 4 sentences to it. The first sentence is going to be, you're going to choose the issue you think overall is the most important issue facing the company. And you're going to state the issue succinctly. Here's what it is, sentence number 1. Explain why it's important, sentence number 2. give an example of how it impacts the company that you're profiling, sentence number 3, and give a brief suggestion of what the company should do to address that issue, sentence number 4. Period, end of paragraph, end of summary section, 4 sentences. Then I want you to go down to each of these 6 analysis sections: overall strategy, external analysis, internal analysis, customer and competition, management, and financial analysis. You'll see all of these as I go through the document over the course of today, and then we'll go back to these each week in the lectures later on so I can explain to you what I want you to do to fill this out. So each of these sections, you're going to look at various analyses you've done in that section, and you're going to pick one suggestion that you have overall in each of those 6 sections. You're going to state that state the recommendation in the first sentence. You're going to explain why it's important in the second sentence. You're going to give an example of how the company's situation is impacted by that recommendation currently. And then your 4th sentence is going to give an example of how following that recommendation would improve the company's operations. 4 sentences again for each of these 6 summary sections. Make sense so far?
Yes.
Okay. So, underneath this is what you're going to start filling out over the course of the semester. Hey, how's it going? So, a few of these things we talked about in the introduction lecture, the Hamburg Strategy model and the business business model that we talked about last week in the lecture. So, we talked about vision, mission, and objectives. I want you to go out to various databases, Proquest or one of the other databases that we have access to in our library. You could go to Edgar, you could go to Google. You could also interview people from the company, and I want you to fill out these boxes here. What is the vision of the company? What is the mission? What are some of their objectives? So, as an example of how to do that, let me go back here again and open up a document underneath the case analysis materials section as well called Wsl Library Databases. So this PowerPoint gives you some instructions on what databases to use for what in our case analysis. Have it open up here in a second. Okay, so First Research and Business Search Premier are 2 databases that you're going to use a little bit further down in the case paper. Proquest, right here, and I've got a link to that database that you can just click on and open with your mouse. If you just open up this PowerPoint document here. Proquest is a great database for newspaper articles, magazine articles, wire reports, things like that, giving news about companies. So you're going to use these databases or Google, the company's website, whatever, to fill out this table for vision, mission, and objectives. And if, for whatever reason, you've done all of these searches and you can't find the information you're looking for, then I want you, as a group, to suggest what you think the company should do, and then document for me what you did to search that you couldn't find anything on. So, for example, if if the company that you're focusing on is Google, we believe Google's vision should be to connect people with information efficiently and dynamically. And then you're going to put a footnote in there. Now, I doubt seriously you're going to have to come up with this yourself for Google, because you're going to do a search, you're going to find the vision statement on their company website, or you're going to find the vision statement in a news report about the company. But if for some reason you did a search and you couldn't find anything, you're going to put your own personal comment here. You're going to go to References, insert footnote, and type our group's recommendation searched on Vision and Google in Proquest could not find any relevant results. Okay, so if for some reason you get to the point where you're putting in your own opinion, I want you to tell me what you searched on and couldn't find. Otherwise, I want you to go out, find this information using the library's databases or Google. Make sense? Okay. So next, we talked about the Hamburg Strategy last week. Same thing, I want you to go out and do a search. If you can't find the information in your search, you're going to put this in your own words. Tell me what arenas the company is active in, what are the differentiators that they have, what are the vehicles that they're using to achieve those arenas and differentiators, what's the staging, what happens first, second, third, and some examples of strategies or projects that they're working on right now. And then finally, what is their economic logic? Are they low cost? Are they differentiation? How does the company make a profit? And fill out that table. Now, I want these tables to fit on one page. So you'll probably find a whole lot of information out there that you can copy and paste. Your job in copying and pasting is to chop down what you have so that it fits in 12-point font in a table on one page. Okay? So your job is not, in this case, to come up with your own words necessarily. You're welcome to copy and paste from the internet, but you need to footnote where you got the information, and you need to chop the information down so that it fits on one page and it looks pretty. So it needs to be in 12-point Times Roman font, nice, like left justified, looking sharp. Business model. This is going to be in your own words. Like I talked about last week, I want you to be able to say about the company that you're focusing on. What is the value proposition to the customer? What are the revenues? What are the variable costs? And what are the fixed costs? And I want that in 3 different sentences. So you're going to say, revenues come predominantly from X, period, space, next line. Variable costs are more or less X, Y, and Z, period. Space, next line. Fixed costs are more or less A, B, and C, period. And then you're going to tell me the resources needed to achieve that value proposition and those costs and revenues. Scrolling down some more. Corporate level strategy. We're going to talk about this in a couple weeks. I'll have a whole lecture. So basically, what I've shown you so far is an overall summary section and 3 tools that we talked about in the lecture last week. Vision, mission, and objectives, the Hamburg Strategy model, and business model. We talked about those in the lecture last week. We'll have a lecture on corporate level strategy here in a couple weeks. And this is basically talking about different divisions of the company, different markets or industries that the company's in, and how did they get there. So you're going to tell me about what the business is. You're going to tell me about whether it's vertical or horizontal integration. We'll talk about what that means in a couple weeks in the lecture. You're going to tell me the type of company or the type of division, the type of venture this is based on stuff that we go over in the lecture as well. And then you're going to tell me how the business got into this, how the company got into this business line, whether it was internally developed or whether they bought another company or whatever. We'll talk about all this in the lecture in about 2 or 3 weeks. We'll also have a lecture in about 3 weeks on international strategy. So in that case, I want you to do searches again. This is going to be searches rather than your own words. I want you to tell me, how does the company tailor products or services for individual international markets? I want you to tell me, what are some non-headquarters locations doing that is innovative in the company? I want you to find what market shares are largest in different markets around the country or around the world. Again, the instructions for what you need to do are in red. The black is the table that you're going to use to fill out, and you're basically going to copy and paste information into each of these boxes, footnote it, and make it look nice. Make sense? Okay. So all of those tools that we just talked about, 3 of which we've already gone over in the lecture, another 3 of which we're going to go over in future lectures, combine to make up the overall strategy section of your case analysis. So out of all of those, you're going to pick one area for recommendations and put that in the summary section. Then we have a section on external analysis. We'll be doing a lecture on this next week. Driving forces are something you're going to go to a database called First Research Industry Profiles. You're going to find the information in that database, copy and paste it. That is something as well that I'll show you again when we go through the lecture on that topic. Porter's 5 forces. Again, you're going to go to a certain database called Business Source Premier. You're going to go to the proper section of the report that you find in that database on your company's industry, and you're going to copy and paste information on each of these 5 forces. We'll talk about that, and I'll show you how to do it in the lecture that we get to on that topic. Key success factors. This is going to be in your own words. You're going to basically take the resources needed that you identified in your business model, and you're going to put those here as the key factors of success. You're going to give a weight to each of those, which is more important, less important, on a scale of on percentages that add up to 100. And then you're going to give me about a sentence or 2 justifying why you think this area is more important, this area is less important. So that's in your own words. Then we've got internal analysis. So out of those 3 things, driving forces, Porter's 5 forces, and key success factors, once again, you're going to choose one of those areas for a suggestion, and you're going to write about that suggestion in the summary section at the top of the case. But obviously, you need to do all these analyses before you can write the summary section, so even though the summary section is the first page, it's going to end up being the last thing that you fill out at the end of the semester. So internal analysis, we're going to go over in class, and I will show you how to choose some resources or capabilities that the company has that are critical to its operations, and you're going to identify whether those resources and capabilities are rare, valuable, whether they're hard to imitate, and how well the company is positioned to leverage those resources. You will also do a competitive strength assessment where you basically take the same factors and weights that you identified in the critical success factors, and you're going to put those in these first 2 columns here. And then you're going to look at the focal company that you're analyzing in your case analysis and rate how good or bad are they in each of these areas from a scale of 1 to 10. in your own words, and then you're going to give me a sentence or two justifying why you think they're good or not good in each of these areas. You're going to do that for the focal company, and then you're going to do the same thing for one of that company's main competitors. So if we were looking at Google, perhaps you would do the assessment on Google, and then you do the same assessment on Microsoft to compare the two. Scrolling down some more. You're also going to do a SWOT or TOES analysis, and the thing that is different here from SWOT analysis you may not have done in the past is I want you to list the opportunities, threats, strengths, and weaknesses on the outside of a matrix that looks like this. And then in the inside of each of these boxes, I want you to suggest a strategy that the company could follow in each of these areas. So for example, strengths and threats. Suggest strategies that could use strengths to avoid threats. So forth and so on for each of these four areas. That's going to be in your own words. And out of all of those elements, so competitive resource and capabilities assessment, competitive strength assessment, and the SWOT or TOES analysis. Out of those, again, you're going to come up with one main recommendation and write about that in the summary section at the top of the document. Then we've got a section on customer and competition analysis. I'm going to talk about these things in class. You're going to fill out this chart with research, either interviewing customers or looking online for information there, or putting it into your own words if you can't find those two resources. Tell me about 3 different products or services that the company offers. What are the demographics of the customers that consume those products? How often do they purchase? Several other things about prices, the kind of advertising media that they usually use to find out about the product, etc. We'll talk about this in the lecture. I'll show you again later how to fill out this chart after we do the lecture on that. And that lecture will be about 5 weeks from now. Market sizing, after you've identified the characteristics, demographics, and so forth of a couple of different customer segments, you're going to basically do an estimate of how big one of those customer segment is. So we're going to use a couple of databases from the Census Bureau to find out how many people there are of a certain income category or certain occupation that are in California or in Bakersfield, and be able to do some estimates of how big a market might be based on certain assumptions. I'll walk you through in a lecture again about 5 weeks from now on how that works. After that, I want you to talk to me about generic competitive strategy. So that's basically talking about, similar to the economic logic up in the overall strategy section in the Hamburg model. I want you to tell me whether the company competes on cost or differentiation in each of those 3 customer segments that you identified above, and then give me a couple sentences on why you think that they compete on price or they compete on differentiation. Finally, we're going to have a lecture about 6 weeks from now on competitive attack and defense posture. So we're going to talk a little bit about market commonality and resource similarity, which basically means how similar are your customers and how similar are your resources between your company and its main competitor. We're going to give that a category based on some stuff that I talk about in the lecture. We're going to identify whether the company mainly attacks or mainly defends as their competitive posture. and then a couple of comments about why you think that's the case, once again. And this is in your own words. Again, anytime you should use a database, I put that in red above. Anytime it should be in your own words, I've also put that in red. And anything in the table in red is basically the options that you're supposed to choose from in order to fill out that particular area. Hey, Sam. So that's competitive attack defense posture. Then I want you to create a market positioning map, which is basically going to identify two different characteristics of the company and its main competitor, such as the price and quality of their products on one axis and maybe geographic reach on the other, something like that. Something that's going to show me the difference between the two companies. And you're going to put little bubbles on here showing where the companies belong on these two axes, and then you're going to give me a description down here at the bottom as to why you chose the axes you did and why you placed the two companies where you did on those axes. So out of all those, customer analysis, market sizing, what were the other ones? Competitive attack defense posture, generic competitive strategy, and market positioning. You're going to, again, choose one recommendation out of those 4 tools and give me a paragraph about it at the top of the case analysis. Then we get to management analysis tools, which we'll talk about 7 weeks from now. Managerial execution. You're going to go out and do some searches online to find out how does the company recruit, retain, and empower staff. What kind of software and hardware do they use inside the company? How do they compensate employees, and what kind of non-financial incentives do they have in the company for employees? And finally, how do senior managers inspire staff and solve operational problems? These are going to be searches that you do on Proquest or on Google. They're going to be footnoted, copied, pasted, and footnoted. And again, each of these pages is designed to fit on one page. So your job when you're copying and pasting is editing and making sure that you only choose the words that are necessary and don't have a bunch of extra fluff in there so that it fits on one page. You're also going to do a section on corporate governance, which we're going to talk about 8 weeks from now. This is basically going to be finding the names of the people who are on the board of directors of the company that you're analyzing, giving me the name of that person, whether they work inside the company or not, how long they've been on the board, their age, sex, and ethnicity, what their educational background is, and what their work background is, and whether that work background involves work within the company that you're studying or not. You're going to kind of come up with some summary percentages about all of that down here at the bottom. Again, your red description is at the bottom of the page in this case. You're going to do some research on corporate social responsibility, which basically is identifying in a search online what kind of lawsuits have been brought against the company, what kind of charitable giving the company does, and what the impact of the company is on the natural environment or on the society in general. Again, copy, paste, footnote, make sure it fits on one page and looks nice. So out of those areas, corporate governance, corporate social responsibility, and managerial execution, you're going to choose a recommendation from those 3 areas and write a paragraph on that at the top of the paper. And then finally, there's a financial analysis section of this that we're going to go over in class about 9 weeks from now. And You're going to calculate some financial percentages about the company you're studying and about their main competitor, as well as what the overall averages are for that industry. After you've calculated those numbers, you're going to write some words down here below the chart telling me, okay, this company has a better percentage, has a better gross margin than this company, but both are above the industry average. So you're going to compare the two companies to each other and to the industry with 4 bullet points below the financial analysis section. Then you're going to go find online the company's income statements for 3 recent years, put this information into the chart here, and you're going to, this is just a copy and paste exercise. The thing that you have to do besides copying and pasting is look through these various line items and identify one that looks particularly interesting. So maybe you've identified that they have a lot of depreciation expenses and you want to highlight that line. Or maybe you've noticed that their investment in IT systems is really high and you want to highlight that one. Whatever you want to highlight, you're going to choose one of these and give me a sentence about it down here at the bottom. Then finally, you're going to do the same thing with the company's balance sheet. So instead of the income statement, you're going to look at the balance sheet, copy, paste what their figures are for 3 recent years, and then identify one of these categories. Maybe they have a really low cash balance. Maybe they have really high accounts receivable. Whichever account sticks out to you, you're going to fill that out and identify, hey, at the bottom of the page, this is what I think is particularly interesting, but this is what we as a group think is particularly interesting about this balance sheet. Then you're going to take a recommendation from one of those 3 areas, the income sheet analysis, the balance sheet analysis, or the overall financial ratio analysis. You're going to find a recommendation from there, put it up at the top of the paper, give me a paragraph on that. Now, that may seem like a lot right now, but that's basically what you're going to do for the entire rest of the semester. I just gave you the overview of what your work looks like. We're going to talk on Thursday about the simulation online, which is a different part of your work, but between the exams that we have in class, this paper that you're filling out over the course of the semester, and your online simulation work, that's pretty much all the work that you do in this class. There's a little bit of improvement that you need to make to your LinkedIn profiles and your professional development plans. There's a few other things, small points, but the lion's share of your grade in this class is 3 exams, this paper, and your online simulation. And it may seem like a lot right now, but you've got the whole semester to fill it out, and I just gave you the template that all you got to do is fill it out. So as a group, you can sort of dump some information in here each week after we get done with the lecture, and it won't seem so daunting by the time the semester is over. Yes?
So what if they have a comparative financial statements? What would you do? You know, if they don't have 3 and they're just using 2 years.
If you can only find 2 years, use 2 years. When I do my financial analysis lecture, it's easier if you choose a large publicly traded company. It's easier in this class to do to find the information you need if you choose a large publicly traded company. If, as a group, you're interested in a smaller private company, there's some other things that you can do, different ways to calculate the information that I'll show you in my lecture. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So find as much information as you can. If it happens to be a private company and you can't find the information, I will give you some alternative methods in my lecture. Sam, yes?
Are there issues with having the same companies between separate groups?
No, should be fine. As long as you do your own work.
Yeah, just in case.
Yeah, should be fine. So, that is largely my lecture for today already. So it's only, what, half past? 1:35 or so. But that's about it. How you guys feel about what we talked about so far? Yes, hang on. Quiet. Question?
So for the Globus thing,
Yep,
when I went to go like sign on, it said you have to give us a code.
I do.
Oh.
I will give you that code. I have to assign all the, I need all the groups to sign up.
Okay.
So many of you have still not told me who your group is. I need to know that ASAP. And then after the lecture on Wednesday, not Thursday, Wednesday, after the lecture on Wednesday, I'll email each group with the code.
Okay.
Other questions? Does anybody feel bad about getting done early? Because I want to give you your money's worth. We can sit here and just kind of chat, you know? You sure?
Pay the same amount no matter when you let us know.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, you can go now. I'll see you on Wednesday.
You keep this. This has like
Okay.
our games. And
Cool.
stuff in it. There should only be a couple that I really miss for this.
That's fine.
But
Good luck.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Was everything from this lecture absolutely was that when you're missing now?
No, it's the exact same lecture.
Okay, all right, thanks.
No problem. Yes. Good to meet you.
My name is Nelson. I emailed you about the
The biggest thing you should know is that you need to get in a group, and I have recordings of the lectures. Awesome, thanks. I have recordings of the lectures that I'm going to put up on Blackboard, so you can watch the lectures from last week sometime. I haven't posted them yet, but I'll post them soon.
Shall I join the group myself?
No, you go ahead and join one yourself. Yes. I haven't sent it yet. No, each person in the group has to open their own tab. No problem. Lauren, what's up?
I sent you an email. Did you get it?
Yep.
We're gonna add one more person to our group. Is that okay?
Yes, but can you email me?
We'll have him. Yeah, I think he's gonna email you. And then week 12 on the syllabus is spring break.
Is it? Okay. So does that mean we don't have class that week? Awesome. Cool.
I haven't found a group with us.
You have not found one with less than 5 people? Unfortunately, it's got to be less than 5.
Oh, you don't have a
Want to join a group together?
Individualist?
Yes. No. As long as you email me, it's fine. No problem. Yes. These two don't either. Want to be in a group with them? No problem.